Gordon Ramsay is 59 years old, he trains 5 days a week, and he's in better shape than most chefs half his age. So naturally, you look at that and think, well, that must be the blueprint, right? Train more, get up at 5 a.m, go hard at least 5 days a week. But if you're a chef working more than 50 hours a week, that routine will probably bury you if you try to do it. So in this video, I'm going to break down what Gordon actually does in his routine, which parts you should probably ignore, and which parts are worth copying if you want to get in shape. So why am I even talking about Gordon Ramsay? Well, because he's been in high pressure kitchens for decades, he's still an incredibly busy man, and his routine is actually quite relevant to a lot of chefs, just not necessarily replicable, which is the part that most people miss. If you've seen the recent Netflix documentary, he's pretty open about why fitness matters to him. His dad died at 53 from a heart attack, and he said himself, chefs are the worst for cholesterol, blood pressure, all of it. So at least for him, fitness isn't optional, it's survival. And he makes a very good point. You won't last in the industry if you don't look after yourself. Fitness gives you longevity, and without longevity, nothing else really matters. But that context explains why some parts of his routine work fantastically and why some of them don't translate at all. So what does his routine actually look like then? Well, from what I can find in an article from Men's Health about Gordon Ramsay, his routine is roughly this. He trains 5 days a week. He gets up at 5 a.m. pretty much every morning to go for a run. He does push-ups every single day, and he keeps his body weight in check through portion control, not by cutting foods out. Apparently, he's pretty happy to just have 2 bites of any dish you put in front of him and then push it away. Pretty savage, really. And if you've seen the Netflix doc, it all backs that up. You see him doing a lot of running, cycling, cold water swimming. He's even got a gym in his house. The man is pretty committed. But the part that makes it even more impressive is his schedule. He's away for up to 6 weeks at a time, traveling around the world, opening new restaurants, filming for TV, and he's still keeping his routine going. So on paper, it's like, yeah, clearly this guy knows what he's doing, but some of that stuff is great, and some of it is not the best move for most chefs. So let me break it down. 3 things to ignore first, and then 3 things that are worth copying. Okay, first thing to ignore is the 5 a.m. wake-ups. Look, I get the appeal. You see Gordon getting up at 5 a.m. and smashing his run before the day even starts, and you think, yeah, that's what I need to start doing. More discipline, I just need to get up earlier. But for most people, it's a fragile routine. I tried it last year when I was kind of in the early stages of starting my business with an absolute mountain of stuff to do. And I thought, well, if I just start my day earlier, I can get more done and finish at about the same time. So I started getting up at like 6, half 6, instead of my usual 7:30, 8. And the first week, it felt unreal. I felt like I'd cracked the code. Way more productive and getting loads more done every day. The second week, same thing. Then into the third week, I snoozed my alarm. Just once. I was so tired, I told myself I just needed a little lie-in and I'd get back to it tomorrow. But then the same thing happened. And after a week of this, and then trying it all again a few weeks later, it made me realize that some people are wired for early mornings and some people just aren't. I could probably force it if I really white-knuckled my way through it, but I don't need to, and neither do most people. Now, let me just quickly get in there before someone comments, I get up at 5 a.m. every day for work and it's no problem. Fine, I respect it. Like I said, some people are wired for that, some people aren't. And for me, there's a difference between having to get up for work because that's when you start, and having to get up earlier than that for yourself because you want to train or you want to get even more work done. Anyway, if early starts work for you, brilliant, use them. If it doesn't work for you and it feels like an uphill struggle every single day, that's just going to make you exhausted. And exhaustion is just going to kill any consistency you're trying to get. So that's the first thing to ignore, or at least take with a big old pinch of salt. Now the second, and this one is a big one. Training 4 or 5 days a week. You're probably thinking more training means more results, right? If I'm not in the gym 5 days a week, I'm not doing enough. And it sounds logical, but if you're working 50 plus hours a week, it's too much. And it's not about motivation or discipline. It's about something a lot of people ignore, recovery. Think of your body as a battery. Work drains it, going to the gym drains it. And if you're maxing out both 5 days a week, you're gonna stay in low battery mode, no matter how much you sleep on your days off. And when you're always on a low battery mode, when you're always in the red, progress is slower, injuries are more likely to happen, and motivation drops because you're exhausted. Again, that all comes back to recovery. Yeah, sure, you can white knuckle through it for a few weeks, but at the end of the day, you're driving with the brakes on, and you're not gonna get anywhere near as far as if you just took the brakes off. So doing fewer, smarter sessions keeps you out of the red, keeps you out of low battery mode. So your body can actually recover, and then progress shows up a lot quicker. So that's 2 down. There's one more thing to ignore, and then I'll show you the things that are worth stealing. The third thing to ignore is doing loads of steady state cardio. And this one trips a lot of people up because when people think I need to get in shape, they default to cardio. They think I better start running. 45 minutes on the treadmill 3 or 4 times a week. That's what getting fit looks like to a lot of people. And I had a new client start with me the other day doing exactly this. He told me on our call that his gym sessions consist of 30 minutes on the bike, 30 minutes on the treadmill, and then about 10 minutes of weights at the end. He's been doing that for the last 6 months and he hasn't lost any weight. Not because he's lazy, but because of how he's been choosing to spend his time in the gym. So if you're a chef, you're already doing cardio at work. Every shift, you're on your feet for hours on end. You're moving constantly during service. You're sweating, your heart rate's up. That is cardio. So just piling more of the same on top. It's like pouring a bucket of water into the ocean. So the better option is to do 1 or 2 interval cardio sessions per week, 10 or 15 minutes each. They're to complement your strength work in the gym. That way it's a different stimulus to what your body's already getting at work and a much better return on your time than 30 minutes plodding on a treadmill. So there's the 3 things to ignore. Now here's the bits that Gordon gets right, and these are worth copying. The first thing is daily push-ups. And I know what you're thinking, push-ups. 20 push-ups isn't going to do anything. Well, that's the perfectionist trap. That if it's not extreme, it doesn't count mindset. And to be fair, it's easy to see where it comes from in the kitchen, but when it comes to fitness, it's not going to get you very far. Because Gordon is absolutely bang on with this one. Push-ups can be done anywhere. You can do them on the floor at work if you want. No equipment needed, and doing them little and often works extremely well. A simple way to do it would be to do 2 or 3 full body workouts in the gym as your foundation, and then top that up, say 4 times a week with push-ups. That way, if you have to miss the gym for whatever reason, if you're short on time or you get called into work, the push-ups can keep you showing up and keep you in the game. So that's the first thing worth stealing. Here's the second. His approach to nutrition. Most chefs go wrong here, right? The instinct is to cut things out. No carbs, no sugar. You go hard for a week, maybe 2, and then you're elbow deep in staff burgers because you've been starving yourself. But Gordon doesn't do that. He doesn't cut foods out. He controls his portions like an absolute savage. And in the Netflix doc, he says something along the lines of, if you're in shape, it means you can basically eat whatever you want. And that's true to a degree. Because what he's not saying is that he's built that up over decades of training and discipline to get him to that point. He's earned that freedom. But if you're just starting out and you're pretty early on in your journey, you can't train 3 times a week and then eat whatever you want and still expect to lose body fat, for example. That comes later, once you've built that foundation and locked those habits in. So the realistic version is this. Treat portion control like practice. The more you do it, the easier it's going to get. And when you start seeing those results, you link them to the habit of portion control, which then makes it even easier. And it becomes this positive feedback loop where you're seeing results from doing this thing, which means you want to do this thing even more. Keeping it sustainable is a lot better than trying to be perfect with it, especially in hospitality where you're going to be around pretty amazing food all the time. But like Gordon said, you do get to a point where you have that freedom. You can eat foods you want because you're showing up in the gym, you're exercising, and that food gets used as fuel. So there's one more thing worth stealing, his daily eating pattern. He normally has a protein shake for breakfast, eggs for lunch, and then some kind of high protein meal with plenty of veg for dinner. It's simple, repeatable, and it works for building muscle and fat loss. The only difference between those goals is the portion sizes and the total daily intake. You don't need to overcomplicate this. That kind of eating structure is absolutely bang on. So there's 3 things worth stealing. Now, if you combine those with what we're going to ignore, here's the chef-proof version. This is the bit that matters, because the question in your head right now is, so what should my week actually look like? Let me tell you about my client, Adam. He's a pub manager. And before we worked together, he was stuck in this stop and start cycle. Get to the gym 4 or 5 days a week, eat cleaner, go hard. And every time he'd last a week, maybe 2, and then fizzle out. And after months of that cycle, he'd gotten to his highest body weight ever. So when he came aboard, we just stripped everything back. Forget 5 sessions, just get to the gym twice, maybe 3 times. Full body every time you're there. And on nutrition, more protein, more fruit and veg, and stick to rough meal times where you can, instead of constantly grazing throughout the day. Nothing extreme, nothing complicated, but 4 or 5 months later, he was 7 kilos down, and he gained a load of muscle as well. And the reason it worked wasn't a secret program. It's because the plan was realistic enough for him to stick to. So here's the structure, right? 2 or 3 full body sessions in the gym per week. That means you hit every major muscle group per session, you get more stimulus in less time, and you recover faster. Remember the battery analogy. It's way more efficient than chest day, back day, leg day, because if you miss 1 session on a split like that, your whole week falls apart. But if you miss 1 session on full body, you just have to think, right, where can I fit 1 or 2 sessions this week to keep things moving? Lower pressure, better consistency, and better results. So the mistake that most chefs make is copying extreme workouts and routines and wondering why they can't stick to them. So now that we've cleared that up, the harder bit is figuring out a process that still works when your shifts change, your sleep's bad, and things start falling apart. So in this video here, I break down the exact process that fixes that. Go watch that one now.